Hello, everybody. I am designing a new studio for myself. That's right. I'm selling my old studio, if you haven't heard already, and I am building a new studio. Why would anyone do that? Well, there's a lot of backstory here, and I'll get into that. But before we dive in, for those of you who are new, my name is Wilson Harwood. I'm a studio designer and acoustician based in Nashville, Tennessee. And I also have a free resource for you if you're trying to build your own home recording studio, which is my free soundproofing workshop. It's 30 minutes of in-depth teaching going over everything you need to get on the right track to building your own home recording studio or soundproof space or a home theater. To watch that, just go to soundproofyourstudio.com/workshop. All right, let's dive into why I am building a new studio and showing you some of the behind the scenes as to how I'm thinking about it in this part 1 version. This is where a lot of you guys probably are and where you should be if you're thinking about building a new space, either in your backyard, in a basement, or in a garage. And this video is going to be one of the coolest ones that's going to show you how I think through the design process and take you behind the scenes on that with something that's very personal, which is my own future studio, which I want to be pretty freaking great since I do this for a living. So let's dive in and talk about all that right now. All right, so first off, like anything in life, I am buying a new house with my wife and we're growing our family, so we needed to change our lives around. And that is where this comes in. This is a little carport in the backyard of the house that we're buying with an existing space right here. Now, I'm going to warn you guys, this is a model that is still in process, and it's kind of messy and crazy. But I'm just showing you the general idea of this future space. You know, we've got this carport with a bunch of crazy trusses, and then it switches over, interestingly enough, to rafters over here. The ceiling height is not this high. We'll get into that in a second. I'm actually planning on raising up the ceiling. But before I jump into this, I want to show you guys just a general overview of the studio here. So let me go in by just taking this off, and we're going to take away these guys, which I just created because SketchUp's being weird. So I'm just going to hide them real quick. And then I'm going to go into my tags here, and I'm going to take the ceiling off. And that didn't really take off everything. So I'm going to take this off, and then I'm going to go down into the studio so you can sort of see what it looks like. And so I've had a lot of fun on the sort of interior design side, thinking about, what do I want this studio to look like based off all the knowledge that I have and everything I'm doing. And so you can see right now, I've kind of got an idea based on the acoustic treatment I already have, the design knowledge I've created, and all that. So I want to break that down into this video so you guys can get a sort of deep dive into sort of my philosophy of design and how I'm approaching the studio. So first off, let's talk about the inspiration of having all wood walls. This is something that I don't know. I've really been into this for a while, this idea of, sort of Nordic, Norwegian vibes, sort of a cabin vibe. And I've always felt like drywall, even though I spec it in a lot of my designs because it's cheaper and easier, I don't like the sound of drywall personally in my rooms. So here's some design ideas for what I'm thinking about. And as you're going on your own studio design, this is the type of work you should be spending more time on and less time obsessing over the STC values and all that stuff. But maybe that's the luxury of having done this for a long time. But now I'm really more focused on aesthetic and vibe at this stage and trying to find things that inspire me. This is probably one of my favorites. This is a design, and again, a Scandinavian design. And this is probably what I'm really going for in terms of what I want to show my contractor and what I'm going to be looking at when I design my studio. Now, obviously, this room would sound very echoey, but it's going to have a warmer sound and feel to it than just pure drywall everywhere. So I wanted to show you that so that you could get a feel for what I was doing here, with sort of in SketchUp showing just the general design. I'm going to have A to Z Studio sit stand workstation desk that's coming in. This is just artwork. It doesn't really have any acoustic effect. And then we've got, I was going to put in soffit bass traps custom all around the ceiling. We got some lighting in there to come down, some nice, beautiful lighting there. These are my existing bass traps. I'm thinking about keeping them. I'm not sure yet. Lighting into the soffit bass traps with some track lighting, which I think will be nice. I've got this existing, holy smokes. It's always fun getting out of there. I've got this panel already exists, but I'm going to do some backlighting connected to it. I might put downlights in it, but I'm not totally certain if that's necessary. I will get Alex McVeigh to build me another panel in the back, again, that will have downlights in it. So we'll have that in there. So downlights there, and mini split in the back. And then generally just a dehumidification system right here. What's really unique about the studio is I will put the fresh air in my vent system up here so that I can have the return air right here. And then I'm going to dump the fresh air directly over top of my mini split, like I've talked about before. That'll give you the best sort of design, fresh air coming right in. It's heated or cooled instantly, and it's shot across the room. And then I'm going to have my return duct somewhere in here. I don't want it right where my listening position is, so I'm probably going to put it right in between these speakers here, and that should give me enough space. Let me just see. I'm not even sure if I can, I don't know if I can do that from here to like here. Yeah, it's about 8 feet or so. 10 feet's great. So probably a little bit farther over there. And that'll be a perfect design for this room. And then, you know, I've got some plant vibes in here. We went to a brewery recently, and I thought, oh, they had plants and track lighting hanging down from a soffit-like system like this, and I like that vibe. So, you know, when you visit restaurants, think about what you like. This is a side of this channel that many people have not thought about, and it drives me crazy when my clients come in and they have not thought about how they want their studio to feel and look. They've only thought about, you know, the isolation and all the technical stuff, but that's really not the fun of it. It's not. And maybe, you know, that's why hiring a designer is nice, because you get that approach. So another thing I wanted was to be somewhat aware of the, you know, acoustics in the room. And I'm not gonna lie, this is a smaller space. So let's get into the technical now, since you guys are probably freaking out about like, well, how are you doing your walls? What is going on there? So with the walls, we've got the existing is hardy plank, which I'm very lucky that I have that. And then some sort of, you know, I'm assuming 1/2-inch plywood. I don't really know yet because I haven't opened it up, but that's going to be okay for my exterior walls. It's not quite what I want. Ideally it'd be hardy plank plus 3/4-inch OSB sheathing. But I'm not going to tear off the outside of this. And I want to save some money on this project. Like everybody, I'm not going to spend a fortune. I mean, this will probably cost a lot anyways, but anyways, so that's the exterior walls. You know, it's decent, but not great. So what I'm just trying to decide on the interior walls is right now we're going to use it's not in here, but there's an airspace for it. I'm just going to use the Genie Clip RST system because I don't want to do a double wall system because it will get way too small. And a lot of people are probably gasping right now, but it's okay. I also know that my needs for isolation are probably, you know, they're needed for a drum set. I'm not playing super loud. I'm probably not going to play in the middle of the night like some of my clients. And so my isolation needs might actually be less than yours. And that's also okay. That's one of the benefits of knowing how this works and knowing that you don't necessarily need 100% isolation all the time, and you can kind of do different approaches. But what I'm leaning towards is probably trying to get about 3 layers of drywall in my system. Right now it's just 2 layers of drywall, and then it's going to be a final layer of 15-30 seconds like a sort of a finished wood. But I haven't found the wood I want yet, so I'm not sure about that. And if the wood ends up being a lot thinner and cheaper, which it might be, then I might go with more layers of drywall. And I might even still start with a layer of OSB sheathing on here probably, and then a layer of drywall, and then another layer of drywall, and then the final finished wood layer. That's probably what I'll end up doing. And as you can see, I'm still playing. I'm not 100% decided on it. And I'm also looking at my space. You know, I've got 13 feet 7 and 5/16 of an inch, which is about the same size as my last studio, but I don't want it to go that much thinner. And then in terms of the length right now, you know, it's about, let's see here, 19 feet 11 1/4 inches. So it's actually, you know, a little bit shorter than my last studio, which was really at about 20 feet, but not by much, 1 3/4 of an inch or whatever, or 3/4 of an inch, I mean. So it's not that big a deal, but I don't want it to get that much smaller because I know what that feels like. So I'm really playing with this idea. And then the other thing is, some of you guys might be looking at this peaked roof here, and I'm going to put that back in, and you might be saying, oh my God, go all the way to the peak. Look how tall that is. Well, what most people don't realize is that there's a lot of engineering that needs to go into a roof design like this. If I wanted to do a full cathedral ceiling, I would have to get an engineer involved 100% to double check that the LVL beam that's right here is supported enough, the joist can hold the weight. You just can't do that level of engineering on your own, and I wouldn't recommend it. There is a rule, though, that says that you can raise your ceiling joist up 1/3 the height from the top plate of this wall to the very peak of your roof. And that's what I did here. And that would circumvent the need for an engineer potentially. I may still hire one just to double check everything. But my builder, Henry, and I are going to be talking about this and, talking about, hey, what is the potential for this to work? Is a 2x10 beam, which I think is there, enough? And that's the type of stuff that we have to figure out to make sure that our ceiling load can hold it. Then I have to decide if I want to spray foam the entire inside of the roof, which potentially I might do, and just make sure that under my eaves and everything, it's completely airtight and that this is all built up. This OSB sheeting here also is not there currently, so if I just hide that, whoops, that took away the whole thing. But basically, it just opens up right now as a gigantic cavity, and this is all closed with like paneling and stuff. You can't see into it, but it is a gigantic cavity where sound could get in. So my plan is to put, 2 layers of OSB sheathing, or 1 layer here at least, just to try to block some of the sound that could get out through the top here. And then, the amount of weight on a typical roof with like the OSB and the shingles is pretty significant, and it's going to be enough. I'm not going to redo the roof. That's crazy. So what I'm thinking about doing is raising up the ceiling enough to get my ceiling height where the joists are at roughly, and let me just do this real quick. I need to kind of hide a few things and kind of you can see it's a little crazy here with everything that's going on, but let me just grab the top of this beam and then throw it down like this, and then we'll just make it blue so it's straight. So 9 feet, 8 and 15/16 of an inch, give or take, to the finished floor. And if you went all the way to the concrete, it'd be like 9 feet 9 and whatever, 3/8. That's the idea. And I think it was 9 feet and 3/4 of an inch is what I wanted it to be. And then we have our finished ceiling here, which is potentially the wood, and then there's going to be the two maybe even 3 layers of sheetboard above that, and then the genie clips on the ceiling as well. And because of that, we have this funky little edge point here where the genie clips will go, but on this side we won't. So this is kind of a weird thing, because I'm going to build a wall here that's going to be the soundproof wall, and then there'll be 2 layers of drywall on this side. I probably won't do 3, just because we already have a wall here. And this will be my super crazy mechanical room, which is not ideal. I wish there was more space. I'm thinking about shrinking the size of the units. I have a dehumidifier in here because I really, in Nashville, I really want the dehumidified room, because it got way too humid even with my fan tech before. This will be a Brone, so I think it'll work better. But I want to try this out in my future studio. So we're going to put the April Air 100 in there and 2 more baffle boxes to create a dehumidification loop, which is going to be down there. So pretty hardcore, guys. This is how I do. And then there's an existing door here already that will open out and allow some access to this room, but it's going to be tight. It's more of like a storage mechanical room than a functional space. And this is the thing that most people can't accept in these designs, is they can't accept giving up, even 2 feet of space in their studio for what I consider the most important part of your studio, which is the comfort and the feel. And without this room, this studio would be a hot mess. It would not be nice to work in at all. And this is going to make it so much better. So keep that in mind as you're designing your own studio as well. Typical layout for my studio that I had before with the Acoustics, I've gone back and forth between thinking about something like a Philip Newell, crazy, built in the walls, everything. And then I was just like, no, I make podcasts, I make YouTube videos, I'm a creator. I like the vibe that I have here. It doesn't need to be like a control room from the 1980s, And I think that's something that I've really tried to push on this channel, is like, hey, we're in a new era of home studio design. It needs to be quiet, it needs to be functional, and honestly, it needs to really work for Instagram and YouTube, because that's the way the world's been moving. And so anyways, that's what I've got so far. One other thing I've thought about is the AmRock room modes a little bit. And let me see if I don't know if I can find them. Let me see real quick. Yeah, I'd written these room modes out before, and then now I don't have them, but we could do it from scratch, which is not a big deal. So basically right now from interior to interior is 9 feet 5 and 13 seconds. So what we can do here is I'll show you kind of my method for doing this, which you guys might find kind of interesting. All right, so here is the AmRock room mode calculator. This thing is amazing. Make sure to support them here. Really great that we're able to use this. And so we're gonna put in the height of my studio first. And to do that, you really can only use feet. So what I always like to do is go to inches to feet to just create a decimal. And I forgot that already. So we are going to go from here to here, which is 9 feet. So 5 and 13 seconds. So that's what we're gonna put in here. And you can actually just do this, which is nice. And it'll give you a decimal point. And we'll just go out like, we'll just round that up to 6. It's okay. So 9.5 is what we'll do here for the height. So we go back over here. Height is 9.5. And then for the width, let's go do the same thing. And we'll just pull it from the edge here. There we go. 13 feet 7 and 5/16. So we'll do the same thing with 7 and 5/16. 7 and 5/16 is 0.6. So 13.6. So it is a little bit, I think my last studio was 13.8. So this will be a little bit thinner, which is a bummer. And then the length is going to be, what do we say there? So we just click here, pull it across. Oh, SketchUp can't handle the truth. I think one thing I'll tell you guys, SketchUp models, if you're modeling in SketchUp and you have all these cool looking drums and desks and stuff, it really slows down your model a ton, especially that desk, I think in particular causes massive issues, I've noticed. All right, so we're gonna measure from front to back, 11 1/4. So that one, we just put it in here, super easy. 11.25 is 0.9375. So we'll just keep that at 0.9. So 11.9. And now we can see our room modes, and you can see that, it's good. It's this, remember, this doesn't really matter here. What I'm looking for is really, I go in here and I lower this down to the upper limit being 125. And the reason I do that is because above 125 hertz, we can pretty much absorb everything with our acoustic panels. It's really below 125 hertz that it gets less efficient. So I want to make sure that my Bonello is increasing and never decreasing, and that there's no gaps, which we have. And then I just want to make sure that nothing's really on top of itself. Like this, ideally, we could get it a little bit farther apart, but it's not a bad room by any means. You could kind of mess with it. But again, I don't really look at this as the end all be all, because this is just a mathematical formula assuming infinitely rigid walls, which is impossible in real life. So I use this as a guide. And if I was using this on a client's studio, I'd say, yeah, great, looks good. We're good to go. So as I change my idea with my walls, I might come back in here and just, change things up a bit. But for the most part, this is all I really look at. It's pretty quick. And I think some people, obsess over this, and I don't think that that's worth it. So as we go back over here, you can see that I've put some time into this. I'm still working on all their details, and I'll probably transition this to Revit eventually, because we're moving out of SketchUp and into using Revit for a lot of our detailed design drawings. But we still use SketchUp for like initial mock-ups and things like that, because it's really helpful. So I will continue to show you guys this as I develop my ideas on this project. All right, so I hope that was helpful in just sort of seeing how I wrap my own head around my own personal studio. And everything is so personal. I can't really emphasize that enough. Like this idea that there is this one studio out there that everyone, the holy grail that everyone's trying to build, is just not true. The more I've done this, the more I've realized that each client is individual. They have individual goals, individual dreams, individual spaces. Everything is up to you. And so as you go on the internet and you look at other people's designs and goals, constantly come back to your own ambitions and write out a list of like, what are your top priorities? And even me, I'm here doing this as a living. I have to make a ton of sacrifices, as you can see in that space, to get it exactly the way I want it. Maybe it's a little smaller than I like it. Maybe I'm debating on how much isolation I want, and those are the things that it never gets easier, but I can help you through that with all of my experience. And that leads me to my next thing, which is if you guys want some help, I'm always here to help out my clients who really value working as a team together. There's always going to be the people that are DIY that want to save a bunch of money. I get it. I understand where you're coming from. But for those of you who value working together and having someone who's done, dozens and dozens, I think I've done 100 projects so far at least, and so this is something I do all the time. And if you're one of those people, just check out, soundproofyourstudio.com, click on the I want some construction plans, and I'd be happy to help you out along your journey. And you can meet with me for 30 minutes and we'll just go over it. For those of you who are still in the DIY phase, check out that free soundproofing workshop. Just go to soundproofyourstudio.com/workshop, and I'd be happy to share with you my amazing 30-minute workshop. All right, everybody, I'm Wilson Harwood. I'm a studio designer and acoustician based in Nashville, and I look forward to seeing you next week with more information on soundproofing and room acoustics. All right, bye.